To open up a RAW file or convert it to JPEG, you can either drag and drop it from a file browser, or you can go to the Photoshop file menu and open it from the location where that image is at. So once you drag it into Photoshop or open it, you'll find this Camera Raw window where you can do raw adjustments to your file, change the exposure, contrast, highlights, which I've covered in other videos, so I'm not going to get into that. And you'll see over here it might say open, or in my case it says open object. That's because I've gone here right underneath the picture. There's this hyperlink. If you click that, you come up with these workflow options. Now I've got mine set to ProPhoto RGB as the camera, as the color workspace. ProPhoto gives you the biggest color gamut, so I've got it set to that. The depth is set to 16-bit, so I'm not changing the raw file to 8-bit at the moment. I'm leaving that decision for later. The file size is in my case set to basically the biggest I've got in terms of megapixels. Actually, let's change that to that, and the resolution is set to 240. You can change that to maybe 300, which is good for high quality prints. And then I've got this checkbox set to open in Photoshop as Smart Object, and that is why it says open object rather than just open here in that box. If I click OK, click open object, my image should open up there. And the advantage of having this as a smart object inside of Photoshop is that if I add a new layer and let's add an adjustment layer, and I find that at any point, given the non-destructive workflow, if at any point I need to revert back to my raw editing and change something, I can very quickly come over here on my image, which is a smart object, double click on it, and this image will pop up in the Camera Raw window again. So I can go back, tweak my image even more, and click OK. And because we're working in using a non-destructive workflow, this allows me to go back and forth and adjust anything that I need to in the Camera Raw window. And once I'm happy with this, I can go to Photoshop File, Save As or Export, and I can go Export As. Set the format to JPEG. I can specify the quality, how much compression I want, the canvas size, the scale. So you can see some of the colors may be a little bit off given that we were working in ProPhoto 16-bit. JPEG is 8-bit. And you probably want to save it as RGB as well, so we might need to change that. And down here you see it says 23.8 MB, and this has to do with both the image size and the scale of the image as well as the quality. So if I change the size to 33%, you'll see that the image size instead of 23.8 will go down to something much less. It's now 450.7 KB, and if I were to reduce the quality slightly, so maybe take it down to 85, and I should be looking at the 100% view of the image when I do that, just so I can tell if I've got any artifacts in the image. And once I'm happy with it, I can keep it on going back and forth. Now resampling, we've actually set we've scaled the image down, so in this case I would go for bicubic sharper as the filter. Bicubic smoother, if it had gradients, that probably would work better, but you can try trial and error here and see which one works best for your image, and click export, and it should ask me where to save the image. So I will say inside of publish and create a new folder here and call it ZZZ, create, give it the file name you want and click export. And there we have our image.